Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Special Education Legal Fund's first webinar of the 25-26 academic year. My name is Christine Lai, and I'm the Executive Director and Co-founder of Special Education Legal Fund, and welcome to the new S.E.L.F. Before we begin, I'm going to begin with this disclaimer. Um, this webinar panel is presented for informational purposes only. This webinar is intended as a resource for families who are navigating the special education system in Connecticut or New York and is not intended to provide legal support, advice, or assistance to any particular individual, nor is it intended to replace the advice and counsel of a qualified special education attorney. Families in need of legal advice, support, or assistance should contact a special education attorney licensed to practice in their particular state to discuss the specific needs of their individual student. This webinar should not be construed as an endorsement by Special Education Legal Fund or any of its representatives of any of the participating attorneys, advocates, or other professionals in the panel, nor should it be construed as an endorsement of any school or school representative invited to appear on a panel. For webinar participants, this panel should be viewed as a public forum. Please do not ask questions via the Zoom platform, either in the Q&A or the chat, about your child or your child's legal or educational situation. Please refrain from any comments that include identifiable information about your child, including name, grade, school, or school district. Please remember that your screen name may be visible to the participants in this panel, as well as the panelists. This webinar is being recorded and may be distributed or shown at a later date at the discretion of Special Education Legal Fund. We will, if time allows, take a limited number of questions at the conclusion of the webinar following the frequently asked questions section. Before we move any further, I'd like to thank our 2025 corporate sponsors. Their generous support makes this webinar program, as well as so much else of what we do, possible. First, I'd like to acknowledge WealthSpire Advisors and Eagle Hill School at the platinum level, and thank Winston Preparatory School for their support at the gold level. At the silver level, we are grateful to the support of American School for the Deaf, Villa Maria School, Chapel Haven Schliefer Center, Fusion Academy, Spire School, and the Pinnacle School. And last but not least, at the bronze level, we are grateful for the support of our friends at the Windward School. Thank you again to our 2025 corporate sponsors. We could not do what we do without your support. For those of you who are familiar with us, I'd like to take a moment to introduce Special Education Legal Fund. Special Education Legal Fund was founded in 2018 to provide resources, knowledge, and support to families in need with children in the special education system. We have done this principally through two grants programs. The Attorney Grant Program, which provides a one-time grant of $6,000 to be utilized in a family's support by a qualified special education attorney, and the Advocate Support Program, which provides a one-time grant of $1,500 for use by a qualified non-attorney special education advocate. Starting in 2025-26, this fall, Special Education Legal Fund will begin providing direct legal services to qualifying families in the area of special education for students with IEPs in Connecticut under S.E.L.F. legal aid. For more information, please visit our website at www.spedlegalfund.org. Just to highlight our impact over the last 8 years that we've been in existence, I wanted to touch base on a couple of points. The main one being, something that I'm, particularly proud of is that S.E.L.F. has granted over $1.3 million to hundreds of students in the Connecticut and New York special education system since the time that we were founded. Our attorney grants have provided over 7,400 hours of legal support to the families that have been recipients of those grants, and our advocate grants have provided over 2,000 hours of advocacy support to the families receiving those grants. Together, the attorney and advocate programs have provided over $15 million in educational improvements for the students that have received those grants since 2018. Our programs for the 2025-2026 year will look a little bit different than they have in the past. Our legal aid program, the S.E.L.F. Legal Aid, will begin accepting applications through the website at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, September 2nd. Legal aid applications will be accepted on a rolling basis. And the attorney and advocate programs will begin accepting applications on the website at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, September 2nd until September 15th, with interviews to be completed by the 22nd and applicants to be notified by September 30th. The attorney and advocate programs will run at on the same program, on the same cycle, the same monthly cycle that they have done for the last few years. The September cycle is going to be truncated a little bit because of the launch of legal aid, but we hope that you all will will help us flow through those changes. We are so pleased that we are able to kick off the year with so many of you joining us on this webinar. We've gotten into the habit the last few years of, reviewing our programs at the start of the year through a webinar like this. But this year, with so many changes afoot, as well as the new legal aid program, it seemed like a great idea for us to keep that tradition going and also to introduce you to new members of the team. Our staff, you can see in this little, obviously in the bar, the dialogue bar next to the presentation. But here we are. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christine Lai. I am the co-founder and head of S.E.L.F. Since 2018, I'm also the executive director. I'm going to go to the next page. That's me. Everybody knows me. I'm going to skip through this. I want to highlight particularly Stephanie Bilenker, who is joining us on the call on this webinar today for the first time. And Stephanie doesn't really get enough, credit. She's been my right hand person for the last few years. She's been the program director for Special Education Legal Fund since 2021. She's predominantly responsible for both the grants programs, both the attorney and advocate program. And honestly, we could not do what we do without Stephanie. So she is a tremendous resource. She's an attorney. She's not really pretending to be one like I am. And she's really just a tremendous resource for all of our families and for the organization itself. And last but not least, in our staff introduction, I wanted to introduce Laura Sullivan. Laura is joining us as staff attorney and head of S.E.L.F. Legal Aid this year. We are exceptionally excited to have an attorney of Laura's caliber joining this organization. She's practiced law for a number of years as a special education attorney representing children and families in her own practice as well as for others. And she's really just a tremendous resource in all things legal. She's an expert in dyslexia, and we're really thrilled to have her. She's been a longtime partner of ours through the grants program, and we were really thrilled that we were able to entice her to join our organization this fall. Just a reminder that I'm going to turn the presentation over to Laura now. She's going to walk us through the legal aid program. And just a quick reminder that I'd ask you to hold your questions until the end, and I will take a limited number of them, time permitting, after we've run through the presentation and the frequently asked questions. So hit it, Laura.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And first, I just want to clarify for anyone who may have seen me before that I've recently changed my name from Hennigan to Sullivan. So still me, different name, same me. Um, I'm really happy to be here tonight and to be transitioning into this role with S.E.L.F. Legal Aid. I had a great level of respect for Special Education Legal Fund as an attorney who operated under the attorney grant program. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to serve at this level as the staff attorney of S.E.L.F. Legal Aid. So as Christine mentioned earlier, we're officially launching September 2nd, and S.E.L.F. Legal Aid will enable me to provide direct legal support to qualifying families in Connecticut and New York. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to be qualifying. Slide, please. So S.E.L.F. is offering three programs going forward: the Advocate Grant, the Attorney Grant, and the S.E.L.F. Legal Aid. Many people on this webinar are familiar with S.E.L.F. and may have received an Advocate Grant, an Attorney Grant, or perhaps both. Moving forward with S.E.L.F. Legal Aid, if you have received an Attorney Grant for a particular child, you're not eligible for S.E.L.F. Legal Aid for that child. If you have received an advocacy grant for a particular child, you are able to apply for S.E.L.F. Legal Aid for that child. And if you received either an attorney or advocate grant for a different child, you can apply for a S.E.L.F. legal aid for a different child.
Provided that you meet the require.
Right. Provided we're going to talk about the qualifying measures, but you are eligible to apply. Slide. So I think Stephanie's going to go into a little more detail about the grant criteria, but I wanted to speak to the legal aid criteria a little bit. You have to meet all of these requirements. So first, your household income has to be below 125% of the federal minimum poverty level. And these numbers are on our website. You can look them up. And that is for your total household. This is a legal aid requirement, so it's not something that we have flexibility with. So if you're close or things like that, it's really kind of a hard number that we have to go with. You have to live in Connecticut or Westchester County, New York, and your child must already have an IEP for special education and related services in your public school district. Okay, so the S.E.L.F website has three options now under the Apply tab, including Self Legal Aid. Clicking on that will open up a pre-screening questionnaire for you. Once you complete the pre-screening, it will be accepted or denied. And if it's accepted, you will automatically receive an application to apply through a pop-up window or through an email. And the email is coming from JotForm. So if you don't see it, check your spam file. Um, Acceptance at this pre-screen level does not guarantee you'll be accepted as a self legal aid client. It means you're invited to complete a formal application, which is being attached and sent to you. So for the application, you have to provide a few things, and all of these things are necessary for us to be able to process the application. You have to provide proof of income below that 125% of the federal poverty level, a current IEP, and the most recently done evaluation, preferably a psychological evaluation if there is one. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. Um, I will be reviewing the applications and the supporting documents and will contact you to schedule an interview. The interview is an integral part of this process and is required to move forward. We will confirm a time that works for you and provide you with a dial-in number that you will have to call. We cannot call your cell phone, and we will not be sending reminders for this interview call. So it's really important when we schedule it, it's at a time that's convenient for you. It should also be in a quiet environment without distractions for you. And once the interview is complete, the application process is complete. If your application is accepted, the self legal aid will be moving forward with representing your child. You will be notified in the days after the completion of the interview. And you can check, that's, I think, the next slide, right? Yep. So unlike the grant programs, we have specific that have specific deadlines and notification dates, as Christine discussed in her intro. The Self Legal Aid has a rolling year-round acceptance process based on the program's capacity at any given time. So the application process will close when we reach capacity and will reopen once legal services are available again. There is not going to be any kind of wait list that would be very difficult to manage. So you'll have to check the website, social media, and other announcement forums for any of the updates as to whether the legal aid is open to applications or closed. So that's kind of the short version of the self legal aid process. And I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie now to talk about the grant program.
Stephanie, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the kind words, Christine. I love being associated with S.E.L.F and love being behind the scenes. And now Christine's pushing me out into the open, and I'm happy to speak to you all tonight about the grants programs. So the grants programs are not unlike what we've been running for the last or since our inception. The eligibility guidelines have slightly changed. So there is the attorney grant program and the advocate grant program. So and the criteria for eligibility for those programs rests on income, residency, and what your child's special education status is. So the first criteria is income. it used to be that your income could be anywhere below 300% of the federal minimum poverty level to qualify. But now, since we've started the legal aid program, that's going to take over families who are under the 125%. And so the attorney grant program is going to shift where income has to be between the 125% and 300% of the federal minimum poverty level. And for the advocate grant program, we're still accepting income that's anywhere under the 300%. Those tables we reprinted them on our website, so you can go directly to the website and determine whether you're eligible based on the number of people in your family. Just by way of example, a family of 4 cannot earn more than $93,600 currently. The government does update those tables every year, as do we, so that our information is commensurate with what the government says the federal minimum poverty level is. The second criteria for eligibility is residency. So you have to live anywhere in the state of Connecticut or Westchester County to be eligible. And the third item is your special education status. Students must have a current IEP for this approaching academic year. With that IEP, the student is eligible for either program, the attorney program or the advocate grant program. If your student only has a 504 plan, they're only eligible to apply for the advocate grant program. So there are 3 steps to the application process. The first is the pre-screen, the second is the full application, and the third is the interview. So I'll take all these steps, I'll break down the steps and just talk about them one by one. So first step is the pre-screen. To apply for a grant, you have to go to our website and you can, we have a drop-down menu where you can apply for either program, the attorney grant or the advocate grant. Here are the URLs. We'll also provide you a QR code in a little bit that you can use to take you directly to the pre-screen. You'll answer a series of questions, and if the pre-screen is successful, you will then get an email from us with a link to the full application. The pre-screen is not the application. So a lot of our families sometimes get confused. They think they've answered these few questions and that's it. There is actually a more lengthy application that you have to complete that I will speak about next.
And once you submit the pre-screen for either the attorney or the advocate grant program, there will be a pop-up window once you've successfully submitted it, which will also have a link to the application as well. But it will also come, as Stephanie said, via email from JotForm.
The email that comes to you might not go to your regular inbox too. So please check every inbox you have, spam, junk, because sometimes it ends up going into an email box that you don't expect. But you will get a response either way, whether you're successful or not with the pre-screen. If you're successful, like Christine said, there'll be a pop-up window or a link to the full application. Once you start completing the full application, there are 3 documents that for the attorney program, there are 3 documents you have to attach. For the advocate program, there are just 2. So the first 3, for the attorney program, it's proof of income, the current IEP, and a recent evaluation. For the advocate program, it's just proof of income and the 504 plan. We don't require an evaluation for the advocate program. Then once you've submitted your application, please do so by the 15th of the month. That's the hard and fast deadline for the grant cycle. And once you've done that, you've completed step 2 and you're ready to move on to step 3. Step 3 is the interview. So after you get the applications documents in, we will contact you to schedule an interview. That email will also come through our automated system, which is called JotForm, and we will confirm a mutually agreeable time. And we'll also provide you a dial-in number. We do not make outgoing calls. We can't call cell phones. And we don't send multiple reminders of your interview. So once you've agreed on a date and time, please make a note of what that date and time is. And then at that date and time, you will call up that dial-in number and we'll be on that line ready to talk about your child. The interview is required, can't be waived, and it lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. And I should say that while you don't need to prepare extensively for it, if you do create a chronology of your child's school experience, important events, it will really help you along the way in the process and make the interview go smoothly. And I should also say, as Laura did, please make sure that it's a quiet space to conduct the interview. Try not to do it when you're driving or in a noisy public environment because you're going to be speaking about events that regarding a child, and you want to have a quiet space to do that. So once you've completed the 3 steps, you've done everything on your end. We then review all our requests for funding and deliberate on those, and we will notify you at the end of the month in which you apply whether you're successful in getting the grant or not. And that notification, again, will come via email. Once you get that email, we ask that you reply to it and let us know that you've seen it and that you accept the grant if you're successful with your application. So who can you hire? So for the attorney program, you can really hire any attorney you'd like as long as they meet these requirements. They must practice special education or disability rights law for at least 7 years, and that part of their practice should represent a majority of their practice. They must be licensed to practice law in Connecticut or New York, and they should be affiliated with the American Bar Association or the Connecticut Bar Association or New York Bar Association. As for the advocate program, we will, when we approve your advocate grant, if we approve your advocate grant, you will be provided a list of special education advocates, and you must select one of those advocates from that list. And Christine's going
Thank you.
to
Oh,
summarize the
perfect.
applying application.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie and Laura, for walking through all of those programs. Just to recap, there's a pre-screen on our website, www.spedlegalfund.org. You can also access us through this QR code. There will be, if you go to the apply button, you will see a drop-down menu which will allow you to drop down to either self-legal aid, self-attorney grant, or advocate grant. And these are the 3 URLs that are here. I received a question earlier during the presentation about this presentation and whether we'd make it available to everyone. And we will make this presentation available to anyone who registered for the program, in addition to the recording of the webinar. Once you've completed the pre-screen, and I cannot stress this enough, if your pre-screen is successful, the system will accept it and you will receive an email immediately with the link to the application for all 3 programs. You will also see in the end screen of the submission a link to the application for the program that you have applied for. If your application does not go through, if your pre-screen is not submitted or fails, that means that you are not eligible to apply to that program. So that's the most important thing about the pre-screen this year, and that is a little different from years past. As I said, you will receive an application in that pre-screen end screen or via email from JotForm. Legal aid, as Laura mentioned, is on an annual rolling admission basis based on the capacity of legal aid, and the grant program applications are due by the 15th of each month. Interviews required for all 3 programs, and the grants program interview must be completed by the 22nd of the month. Notification for legal aid will take place within a few days after your interview if you are accepted into the program. And on the grants program, we conduct a monthly review during the academic year from September until May, and you will be notified at the end of the month in which you apply. So for September, if you submit a pre-screen on September 2nd and you complete your application by the 15th and your interview by the 22nd, you will be notified whether your grant application is approved by September 30th. So I'm going to go through the frequently asked questions. We've answered this question on this webinar, obviously previously, but we're doing it again because this is the single most common question that we get asked at the organization. Can I apply if I've received a self grant previously, or what if I've received a self grant previously? All three programs, the legal aid, attorney, and advocate grant programs, are a one-time grant per child per family. What does that mean? If you've received an attorney grant program at any point in the past, you cannot apply to the legal aid, attorney, or advocate grant programs. If you've received an advocate grant in the past, you may apply for the attorney grant or the legal aid, but you cannot apply for another advocate grant. Obviously, the income guidelines, et cetera, apply here. If you have received support or a grant for one child and you wish to apply for a different child, you may apply to any of the programs. Next question. I was approved for an advocate grant, but I now need an attorney grant. Can I switch my advocate grant into an attorney grant? The answer to this question, which is also pretty frequent, is no. The attorney and advocate grant programs are different programs. They have different funding levels and they have different approval processes. If you are approved for an advocate grant and you decide that you now need an attorney grant, you have to complete the entire attorney grant process, which means you have to begin with a pre-screen, complete the application, and complete the interview for the attorney grant program. Next question is, do we provide attorney recommendations for attorneys? We do not recommend attorneys to clients who've been approved for the attorney grant program. There's a bunch of reasons for this, but because the decision as to what attorney you work with is such a personal one, there really is no way for us to determine what type of attorney you would best work with. And in this area, I'm not just talking about, the attorney's specialties or whether they specialize in students with autism or with dyslexia or whatever. I'm talking about like the rapport that you have with this individual who you're going to be spending a lot of time with in a highly charged and highly emotional state. The best way for you to figure out if you are working with the right person is to interview as many attorneys as is practical, and feasible for you to do. We all of our candidates, all of our applicants who are approved for grant through the attorney grant program will have an opportunity to have an onboarding call, which gives you an opportunity to ask questions about the process and how you might go about finding and hiring the appropriate special education attorney for your child. Next question. What happens if I run out of grant money before my student's case has been resolved? This obviously relates to both the advocate and the attorney grant, the programs. The attorney grant is a $6,000 grant. The advocate grant is a $1,500 grant. Unfortunately, once that funding has been exhausted, that is the limit of what we can apply, what we can deploy through those two programs. After the funding that has been provided has been exhausted, you are responsible for any legal and advocacy fees that occur on top of that. It's really, really important before signing any kind of agreement with an attorney or advocate that you understand not only what their billing practices are, but what's going to happen if and when the grant funds run out. And, realistically, how many hours do they expect your case will take for them to, in an ideal situation, work through. You have to also consider things that attorneys are working when they're not on the phone with you. So there are times where they are reviewing documents or speaking to, the, attorneys and the other, the school district attorneys or whatever. And some of that time will not take place directly with you. And so that's an important thing to understand as you are, working through the billing process and trying to understand that. But as I said, our onboarding call does a great job, and Stephanie runs that onboarding program of explaining and talking through those eventualities. So now we have some time for any additional questions these so the first question is who can apply geographically for these grants. These grants are available to Connecticut residents and residents of Westchester County, New York only. That's the answer to that first question. Second question. Yes, we will provide we will, you know what, there's a question about whether we're going to provide the transcript for some of us with disabilities, and I will do my best to do that. I've actually never done that before, so it's a learning opportunity for me. Um, the second question is if the income is below the 125% level, but the legal aid program is closed due to capacity, can a family apply to either grant program during the time the legal aid program is unavailable? The family cannot apply to the attorney grant program if they have income that is below 125%. The family will, if they require an attorney, will have to wait for the legal aid program to have availability again. The family can, however, apply to the advocate grant program, which will be accepting families with income below 125%. The next question, Stephanie, this is a good one for you to answer, is what are the steps or qualifications to be on the advocate list? That's a great, great question. Steph, if you want to take that.
Sure. Yes. So we revisit the list every summer, and look to see who to add and we take off advocates who no longer want to be on the list, of retiring or not practicing anymore. So we field requests throughout the year, and then we take time over the summer to determine whether the advocate asking is qualified to be on the list. And just briefly, we look for advocates who have at least 3 years of independent special education advocacy experience. And we do prefer that they've completed the SEAT 1.0, 2.0 program with COPA. It's desired, not necessary, obviously, but it is desired to have that training. And then we finally ask that that advocate have a recommendation from 2 special education attorneys who've worked with that advocate. If you are an advocate who works with a special education attorney in their office and receives day-to-day direct supervision from that attorney, we can waive some of those requirements. We do also have a short telephone interview with you where we explain all these things again. So feel free to reach out to me. You can also reach out to Jennifer Canfer, who is herself a special education advocate and one of our staff members, who can explain the requirements to you and talk to you about what would be make sense for you and when it would make sense for you to join the advocate list.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. This was really exciting to be able to bring you this new program, Self Legal Aid, and to welcome Laura Sullivan to our organization, to our family. We are thrilled and excited to have Laura on board. And if you'd like more of Laura, you will be able to see her on September 17th. At our first, academic webinar of the year, which is on dyslexia identification, screening, and support. Oh, we have another question. Can you help undocumented families? Yes, undocumented families are eligible to apply to this program so long as they are able to provide proof of income. For the legal aid program, unfortunately we cannot accept, actually really for any programs, but particularly for legal aid, we cannot accept applicants who cannot provide proof of income. That's a really important metric for any program that is defined as providing legal aid to families of a certain income level. Any other questions? Check the chat again. If that is it, thank you so much to everyone who has joined us. We are, really thrilled again, and like I said, look forward to having you join us on September 17th for dyslexia. And we are, greatly, greatly appreciative of all of your support and everything that all of you. I know we have some professionals on the on the call as well. We're very, very grateful to all the support that we've received from the education community, the professional community in Connecticut, and also from the families. We are really, truly blessed to have been able to get to this point where we're launching this legal aid program and we're able to provide support to families in this way. So thank you all very much. As a reminder, this presentation is recorded and will be provided to anyone who registered for this webinar in addition to the presentation itself. Thank you so much and be well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.